Former civil servant Sue Gray has refused to engage with the probe that's looking into her exit from the government job to join the opposition Labour Party. Cabinet Office Minister Oliver Dowden says the UK government will now consider next steps. Dowden says the government has made a confidential assessment about whether Gray has broken any rules in engaging with the opposition party. Sue Gray, of course, led the inquiry into allegations of lockdown-breaking parties held at Downing Street, which eventually led to the downfall of former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Now, Tory members claim that Gray was in contact with the Labour Party while she was investigating the Partygate scandal. According to UK civil service rules, any contact between senior civil servants and members of the opposition party should first be cleared by ministers. However, Labour Party chief Keir Starmer says he had no discussions with Sue Gray while she was probing Partygate last year. Starmer is also expected to appear before the inquiry panel over the appointment of Sue Gray as his new chief of staff. Earlier, Starmer accused the Tory government of trying to manipulate the local election campaign, while adding that the government should focus on the cost of living crisis instead. Well, for more on this, Adam Schwartz, writer and political commentator, is joining us now live from London. Adam, it's quite a messy situation, this. Of course, Sue Gray has refused to get involved with the inquiry, which was something that she could do. And the government are now thinking about their next steps. What do you anticipate happens from this point onwards?
Well, I think it sort of remains unclear exactly what the timetable is around publication. We were expecting it to be published imminently or even yesterday. We had leaks over the weekend that report was going to be published, but it wasn't. And then, of course, yesterday we found out that from Oliver Dowden, Deputy Prime Minister, who told Parliament that Sue Gray had refused to cooperate with the probe. So I think it's unclear exactly what the timetable is. I think there's a bit of controversy, of course, over the exact publication sort of moment of this. I think, the fact that it was intended to be published this week, I think, is quite controversial. This is quite a sensitive report, particularly that it relates to the opposition Labour Party and the leader, Keir Starmer. And we're currently in what's known as PERDA, the pre-election period, when government and public bodies are told to be particularly sensitive around their communications and what they publish during this period for any kind of impact that it may have on the electorate ahead of the local elections tomorrow. So I think the fact that that was intended to be published, I think, is quite revealing of exactly what is going on behind the scenes in government. So I think, we're not sure exactly when that will be published. I think perhaps in the next week or two. I don't anticipate that will be published today or tomorrow. I think that'll be a little bit too close to the election.
Labour, of course, enjoying a very healthy poll lead at the moment ahead of a potential general election next year or the year after. And, of course, Sue Gray is so associated with the downfall of the Conservative Boris Johnson. Do you anticipate that this episode is going to have any damage on Keir Starmer going forward and with his chances of potentially winning a general election?
Well, I think, that is very much the hope of the Conservative Party. I think the reality is, as we've seen since, Boris Johnson's government was elected in December 2019, that, actually the vast majority of scandals have been government related and related to the Conservative Party. Now, that's not unusual of the government, but I think the number of scandals that have been in question over the issues of conduct and ethics and propriety have been quite high. So clearly the Conservative Party are quite happy to see some kind of issue related to the Labour Party, which they are trying to sort of extract for political capital. I think it is a little bit worrying that there were leaks over the weekend that supposedly said that the investigation was going to conclude that Sue Gray fell foul of civil service rules. Of course, the Conservative Party is going to try to capitalise on any kind of Labour Party scandal. But the reality is, when you are in government, you have an absolute duty to ensure that you're not exploiting being in government and having access to government to use in a way which would give you sort of an unfair advantage to try to hurt the opposition. I think really that's what we've seen over the past week or so. I think in terms of whether it has an impact over the next election, I would think it's quite unlikely, to be honest. I think the election is still probably at least a year away, and I think that actually voters often forget about issues like this particularly when they are quite far away. I think the fact that Keir Starmer has such a healthy poll lead over the Conservatives gives him quite a bit of room, really, to ensure that actually he does maintain a lead. But I think also there is an issue that, as I mentioned, the Conservative Party has been so embroiled in scandal, say particularly during the Boris Johnson years, that really the idea that you can kind of draw some kind of equivalence between the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, I think is really not one that it will particularly be effective for the Conservative Party. So I don't anticipate this will have a major election-defining impact.
Adam, you mentioned about the local elections that are taking place. Just give us your assessment on what we're expecting to happen this week and how that has kind of ramifications for the wider picture.
Well, I think it's, a really important sort of litmus test for Rishi Sunak's government. It's really his first major electoral test he's faced as leader of the Conservative Party. And of course, he has tried to sort of renew the image of the Conservative Party since he came into office in October 2022. So I think, really this is something that a lot of people are going to be looking at in terms of whether he really has the confidence of the British people to lead the Conservative Party into a record election win next year. But I think, really what we're seeing from the Labour Party is them trying to sort of play down expectations that there will be a huge crushing of the Conservative Party, partly because obviously, we're not having local election results all over the country due to the kind of staggered nature of local election results. It's only some parts of the country. And so the Conservative Party is already holding on to, or already suffered quite a few defeats from the last time these particular council seats were held. So I think it's going to be quite difficult for the Labour Party to really kind of crush the Conservative Party in a way that we perhaps seen in other local elections. But I think it's going to be quite important for both Rishi Sunak's premiership, but also the kind of momentum that the Labour Party seeks to maintain going into the next election, as well as other smaller parties such as the Liberal Democrats, as well as the Green Party.
Adam Schwartz, writer and political commentator, many thanks for your insight there.